MSU interim president John Engler gets grilled by Congress about the Larry Nassar abuse scandal. The top two Republican candidates for governor are at it again, and residents in Detroit's Island View community come together to stop gun violence. Stay right there. My Week is coming up now.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Hi, and welcome to My Week. I'm Stephen Henderson of WDET Radio, sitting in for Christy McDonald, who is on vacation. We have a special roundtable to take on this week's top headlines. Coming up, MSU interim president John Engler was on the hot seat this week, testifying before Congress about the Larry Nassar scandal. Also ahead, Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley says Attorney General Bill Schuette has not worked much since he took office. It's the latest volley in the governor's race. Plus, a lack of large hotels is being blamed for Detroit losing the NCAA Final Four bid, and Detroit's Island View neighborhood bands together in the fight against gun violence. But we are going to start with the latest on convicted predator, Larry Nassar. He was reportedly assaulted in a prison in Arizona and might be moved to another facility. Meanwhile, John Engler was on Capitol Hill this week talking about the changes Michigan State University has put in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. But Engler was harshly criticized by several members of Congress for his conduct, including allegedly offering one of Nassar's victims a settlement during a meeting, something that Engler says did not happen. Let's bring in our roundtable to talk about it. My Week contributor Nolan Finley of the Detroit News is here, along with his radio partner on 910 AM Superstation WFDF, Kelly Cobb. Welcome, guys, to the roundtable. Also with us is Zoe Clark. She's the program director at Michigan Radio. Zoe, welcome.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
hello.
Great to see all of you. Let's start with your reactions to Engler's performance in Washington. One of the key exchanges I thought was really interesting was between him and Gary Peters, our own Democratic senator.
Well, I mean, those congressional hearings, we all know they're about grandstanding by the senators. The thing I can't figure out here, and I talked to Engler about it earlier in the year, is how in the world he managed to come in there as the fixer and then end up with all of the responsibility for everything that happened during the Nassar years on his back. Nobody even talks about Luana Simon anymore. I don't know why he didn't come in there and just start throwing her under the bus every day. Instead of, he got very defensive coming in as if the problem belonged to him. It's a mistake. I think it was the same mistake Dave Bing made when he came in to mayor.
Detroit.
I mean, they come in and they take all the, they become very defensive. So the responsibility transfers.
Yeah, that's interesting. At the same time, he's made some key errors in terms of the things that he said. He's put his foot in his mouth a bunch of times, and Congress wanted to get after him.
Yeah, no, look, I may be a bit of a contrarian. It was not a, look, anytime you get hauled in front of Congress, that's not a good thing. No one's bringing you and go, you've done such an amazing job, so we're just having you here to talk. I certainly think he did better than Luana Simon did. She was in a different position. Agreed that he did take some of the ownership, maybe a little too far, but I think one of the things that I really noticed is this is a one-day, maybe two-day story, and communications professionals who are helping him or are looking at this, I think, are breathing a sigh of relief because the fact is we're not going to be talking about his performance next week, right? And that's what they needed to do. He needed to be hauled in front of Congress. He needed to take the hits. Let Gary Peters, who, let's remember, was a state senator when John Engler was governor, and how the tables have turned now. He's sitting up higher or looking down at Engler. And I think in terms of keeping this a short shorter day story that was done. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, okay, like, you know, there you go.
Kelly, do you think Engler is in position to fix this in a way that people will have confidence again in MSU?
You know, I don't know, because I think that there's a long list of people who need to be held to account there. But I don't think Engler's at the top of that list. You know, everybody's calling for his head. Say you fired him. Who's replacing him? The Board of Trustees decides that. The same Board of Trustees that oversaw the entire scandal to begin with. The same Board of Trustees where only 2 of them have said we're not running for re-election. And one of them, Joel Ferguson, has made similar missteps to John Engler. So I think there's there's a lot of people that need to be, you know, held to account before him.
If you look at the actual plan that has been put in place with the help of a lot of sexual assault, both victims and experts, a broad community, a broad committee, put together a very good plan for making sure, or trying to mitigate this happening again, and trying to protect people and giving avenues for reporting sexual abuse and supporting sexual. It's not a bad plan. It's a good plan, but nobody talks about it.
But is it a culture change?
Yeah, here's the issue that I think is really at play, and it's a crazy parallel to make, but do you remember the bankruptcy, right? That Kevin Orr got to come in and he got to play the bad guy, right? He got to slash things, and Duggan was sort of able to come out and go, but we can do this. We're Detroiters. MSU doesn't have that. What they simply have is Engler, who knows he's supposed to do the dirty work. He knows that he was come in to slash and burn things. And what MSU doesn't have right now is a cheerleader. They don't have that kind of comforter in chief. They instead have someone who's doing the dirty work. And what I would think, if someone was thinking, is let's find someone else who's an alum who can bring the best out of people, and let's have some attention, look at the positives. And that's not John Engler doing that.
You would think that some members of the board might be able to play that role, but
I think they're discredited. Yeah, they're discredited to begin with. Here's the thing about leadership that I completely agree with you on, but I would take the opposite tag. It's not necessarily just about positivity. Leadership is owning the responsibilities for the organization, even if you weren't the problem to begin with. No one there, even Luanna Simon, really, who still gets paid more than all of us combined, has a job there. We don't even know what she's... Not Steve, no. But she still has a job there. No one yet. And I think that's what people are doing here. They're trying to tack that blame and heal that wound, and no one has been able to step up in a leadership role at MSU and say, we take responsibility.
The president of Penn State ended up in jail. She's in a brand new office with her husband sitting right beside her in some boondoggle job. She's drawing this year, I think, $750,000.
That's a lot of money.
And then it goes down a wee bit. I think it's $500,000 a year. Where's the accountability there for the person who put this university or allowed this
we've got about a minute left in this segment. I wonder if you think voters will hold the board accountable this fall. Are we going to see people lose seats?
The 2 people are not running for re-election.
The 2 seats that were up, they won't be.
That's right. We don't have either of them.
So there's no, it's up to the people who are running to fill those seats to say that change is necessary.
Is there a conversation about the governance that might unfold that says, hey, this is not the way to make sure that these universities are in good shape?
Should have been happening by now.
It should have been, and I'll stick my neck out and say I would have hoped that even though Governor Snyder did not feel that he had that responsibility and that he had that constitutional authority, I think it would have been good for him to step out a little bit stronger on it, and maybe try to grab some of that.
Governor Snyder stepping out strongly about a political issue.
A hot topic.
You got 7, 8 ballot proposals on the ballot. Being circulated. Maybe. Why isn't one of them a governance change?
To change the governance?
Well, Daniel House, who you of course know very well, has written a lot about that, and there's actually a PhD student has written a pretty incredible paper about some different options. But the issue, of course, is you get to the idea of a governor appointing.
I was going to say, the alternatives are what I think people shy from, and it just sort of makes it more political.
Other 12
works in some other places, but
you don't have this sort of lack of oversight.
Overt political interference. All right, turning now to the Michigan's governor's race. With the primary less than 2 weeks away, the top Republican rivals are at odds over work hours, of all things. Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley says Attorney General Bill Schuette has worked just 104 full 8-hour days since he took office in 2011. He has been in office for a lot more days than 104, obviously. Calley used the state's Freedom of Information Act to get Schuette's official calendar, But Calley will not release his own calendar, and he's not covered by the Freedom of Information Act, so we can't find out how many days he has worked. It's sort of
a stunt.
Part and parcel with the tripping I feel like Calley has done in pursuit of Bill Schuette. He can't land too many punches.
You know, he needed a Hail Mary. He thought this might be it. That's a stunt. I don't think anybody questions that that Bill Schuette has been a hard worker.
Yeah.
I mean, he's everywhere. He considers part of his job getting out in state, and of course, it's also part of his political ambition. But you know, this race has been so ugly and so nasty.
Yeah.
They're
reaching for anything.
I mean, I don't know. The Democrats can fire their dirty trick guy because it's all there for him, all packaged.
Right. So a poll today says this race is over, pretty much. That Calley has not made up the kind of ground you would think he might have by now.
That he would need to.
Is that?
Look, I think it's. I mean, I since March 8th, 2016, when Bernie Sanders ended up beating Hillary Clinton, even though we're talking about Republicans here, and I'm bringing up a Democratic race, but we saw that the polls in Michigan have been skewed, and so my gut says to be very careful about these kind of predictions.
Yeah.
But indeed, I mean, what we've seen is that the trend isn't changing, and that's really what you look at with polls, not this.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and how they've changed. And really what it's been is Schuette's basically been up about 20 points, 2 digits on Calley for months.
Yeah.
And if we had started to see, as the primary became closer, that gap was widening or getting tighter, that would be something to look at, let's say in the Dem race.
Right.
But on the gubernatorial side and the Republican for the primary, it's really staying where it is.
Yeah.
And so that says to me, no, it looks like it's pretty locked. Now, maybe we have an August surprise. But that's going to need to happen pretty darn soon.
I was going to say, we're running out of time. I'm curious why you think Calley's having such a hard time. Is it that he is unlikable or unattractive to voters, or is it that Bill Schuette is such a good alternative?
I think that actually Brian Calley's like the nice guy in the race. It's hard to not like Brian Calley.
Yeah.
I think I would lay the blame here on the political consultants and strategists. Look, Politics 101 teaches you that if you're trying to go negative, it's usually a sign of desperation. If you're trying to go negative, you have to land a blow that resonates with voters and that sticks with voters.
Yeah.
None of these arguments that he's made do that. And you take this one in particular. Everybody who has a job has a calendar. They know that they don't just work on what's scheduled on your calendar. You're working before and after what's in your calendar. So the average voter sees that and says, that's not really the right metric for work.
The average voter, I think, says, I see Bill Schuette everywhere all the time.
And this
is not a general election. This is a Republican primary.
Yeah.
And Bill Schuette has worked that Republican base for years now in anticipation of this moment. Look how long it took Brian Calley to make up his mind to even run. I mean, there's that whole thing of who wants it more. And, Bill Schuette really
well, he's been
wants
running
this.
for governor since the 3rd grade.
Right.
So he's
as the Calley, one of the awful Calley commercials.
Also, can I just say I
of.
think it's this hysterical thing that he isn't working enough, and that Calley's saying that because I'm fairly certain anyone within the Snyder administration would be like, he's working too much.
Yeah,
actually, we would love if Schuette worked a little less. In fact, you go take some more days off. So the narrative doesn't quite work.
I want to quickly talk about the Democratic side. The poll also showed that race appears to be over, which is a little surprising, I think, given how hard Abdul El-Sayed in particular has been working to try to catch up with Gretchen Whitmer. Might we see a surprise there?
Well, so that's something to look at, right? That Bernie Sanders, who Abdul El-Sayed said he would have supported had he had he voted, that Bernie Sanders just endorsed him yesterday.
Yeah.
He is going to be campaigning this weekend with a socialist Democrat who's sort of taking fire, beat an incumbent Democrat in New York.
Yeah.
So we will see, and I think what they are very much banking on is this idea that they are going to pull out what Bernie Sanders and his supporters did on March 8th. And so, yes, again, the polls show that it appears to be Gretchen Whitmer's, and the trend is that she's gaining ground. But look at the crosstabs.
Yeah.
She's got a Detroit problem.
She has a huge Detroit problem.
And this is what you've got to keep an eye out, both for the primary and for the general, is what does the city do?
So if Democrats go left like that and pick Abdul El-Sayed as their candidate, is that Is that risky for the fall? Is that?
Of course. I mean, that's a can't-win nominee. I don't think it's going to happen. If you look at where this race was in June, Thanedar, who was tied with Whitmer, Schuette Thanedar, he hasn't moved a bit. He's right where he was with June. She, meanwhile, has picked up 20 percentage points. She's at, in that poll, she's at 49%.
Yeah, that's really high.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And Abdul Sayed has obviously gained ground, but he's gone from 6 to 11. I just don't think it's going to happen.
And this comes all out to the GOTV, right? And their get out the vote efforts on the day.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I think, honestly, the progressives shot themselves in the foot. You look at the Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders, Bernie wins. There's two candidates. One's progressive, one's the establishment. The progressives have divided their own votes. And it might be the case that they could have pulled out a win here. But you've got Sri and Abdul competing for the same voter base, and they're not going to be able to do it. If one of them stepped out and Abdul got everybody behind him and he got Bernie to come to town, boom.
There's a reason why Gretchen Whitmer didn't want Abdul off the ballot.
Exactly.
Or Sri Thanedar. Everyone was like, why isn't Gretchen jumping?
She is saved because they are on the ballot.
And that is exactly why we don't have a Governor Mike Cox right now, was because of Hoekstra and Cox split the ballot, and Rick Snyder, and Bouchard.
He walked right down
move on here. Turning now to Detroit and its failed bid to land some Final Four games in the future. The NCAA says the city does not have the capacity to house each of the 4 teams in separate hotels. That adds up to 400 rooms that you need in each hotel. The city's bid split up the teams in several hotels, which was a major reason for Detroit losing out. I was surprised by this because, refresh my memory, but didn't we host a Final Four in 2010? Did we lose?
2009, right?
Did we lose hotels?
I mean, it's disingenuous to say we don't have enough 400-room hotels. The 3 casinos,
would do it.
Have it, and you've got the Westin and the Book Cadillac. I don't know, or the Renaissance Center, Pontchartrain. It's just that overall we don't have enough big hotels, and that's been part of the development story here. We've had a lot of boutique hotels opening over the last several months, last couple of years. You got Shinola coming on, and some others. You had the Siren come on. These are 100, 150-room hotels. What we're missing here is a few more really mega hotels.
So you think we need to build like a big convention hotel?
I think that's coming. I think you see the Ponch is going to add a tower. I think that's coming. I think that'll be the next move in the hotel market as we start to add capacity, add bigger events, add bigger conventions. I think we're due for a 300, 400, 500-room hotel coming on, along with these smaller boutiques.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, how interested should we even be, though? And I always say, in chasing these events, because they are so fickle. I mean, you're good enough in 2009, you're not any good in 2018.
Exactly. 2009. Also, let's just say, how many co-workers all actually want to stay at the same hotel. I know plenty of shops that'd be like, no, I'm totally good being at a different hotel. Thanks. Right? No, right, that's this narrative, and I think I just continue to go back to, okay, well, it was fine in 2009, so someone explain that to me. The second is, but it overall goes to the narrative, and I think this goes back to Amazon and things like that. Detroit just isn't quite good enough, one of my things, and maybe this is just I'm an eternal optimist, but is okay, but let's look back to even how much progress has been made since 2009. Can we talk about that? And that Shinola's building a hotel?
You're not going to win every bid. And you wouldn't build a big hotel to chase one event.
Just for that.
But there are many other events, and it's time, I think, this market can handle another big hotel or 2, or maybe 3. And I think as these boutiques fill up, I think you're going to see that over the next couple of years.
Are they going to build someone's talking about building a hotel on the Joe Louis site, or is that housing?
Well, they got
that's such a terrible site, though, because it's right there on the river, which is beautiful.
More access,
but you can't get to it.
The people
I don't know that people want to stay in a hotel that's cut off from the rest of the downtown by a freeway and a parking garage.
And you got the Crown Plaza building a second tower, talking about doing that too. That's 800 more rooms. The reality of Detroit is, our comeback is we've got to fill the vacant buildings. The vacant buildings can't hold more than 100 to 150 rooms. And to get it at market rate, the developers coming in, they use tax credits available to them to bring these buildings back online. The Siren Hotel. Behind that, you've got the Element Hotel in the Metropolitan Building, the longest vacant, dilapidated building in the city of Detroit's coming back, and it's going to be a hotel, and it's going to be beautiful. You've got a number of these stories, but they all involve the nature of Detroit is not big hotels, it's boutique hotels, and it's because of where we are and where we're going in the future.
But we are moving now from rehab to ground up development. If you look at the Fifth Third announcement, Fifth Third could have come in, Chemical Bank, I'm sorry. Chemical Bank could have come in and rehabbed another old building, but instead
they're going to build from the ground.
They're taking and they're going to change the skyline. And that's sort of what we need to see.
But
we
again,
need
I would say,
changing.
look at the debate that we're having right now about should we build new buildings or take over old ones. That conversation, even its own, is so much better.
And we need to brush aside these sorts of critiques. I mean, I brushed aside the transit excuse for Amazon. It doesn't have to do with transit. It has to do with Amazon's priorities. And Amazon buses people in private shuttles around in Silicon
Seattle,
Valley and Seattle. To expect their $100,000 a year employees to get on a bus, I think, is ridiculous. I know people who make half that in Detroit and take Ubers. So I don't think that was a legitimate excuse. And I think the same thing plays here. I think Detroit's doing what Detroit needs to do. We're coming back. It's very clear. Brush off the hits as they come because we're going to be in a good state.
One interesting subtext to that announcement that Chemical Bank made this week is that's going to be done without abatements and without incentives.
And
I can't remember the last time
that
we
also
did that in
speaks
Detroit.
to the growing strength of the market.
That's right.
That's what we've waiting for when you can start doing these buildings at market rate without having
everything changes.
Without having subsidies. I think we're reaching that point. It's a good place to be.
Part of that deal was also that the city of Detroit will be working with Chemical Bank and switching over, and Chemical Bank will be the bank for the city of Detroit.
It's becoming the new Comerica,
So there's always these sort of community tie-in reasons for the things that happen. I think that's probably one we can't discount.
Okay. Finally tonight, here at One Detroit, we're working to bring you more in-depth stories by going out into different communities and listening to what people have to say about the issues they really care about. This next story came out of a community meeting we had in the Island View neighborhood in Detroit, along with our partners at CDAD, which stands for Community Development Advocates of Detroit. Several residents talked to us about gun violence, and while the national conversation focuses on kids being afraid of gun violence at school, a lot of the Island View kids are frightened about getting to and from school. The annual Silence the Violence March is one way residents are trying to engage their community. Take a look.
I'm going to end with this. We put out to our community that we do this march every year. Some fool on next door said something about, oh my God, another traffic jam. Like it's inconvenient. And I can't help it. Murder is inconvenient. Thank you. The death of a child is inconvenient. Was everybody coming together, standing up for our community, standing up for the rights of children, and creating the type of community through which our children can be proud of. A community where we eradicate gun violence, we eradicate mass incarceration, we're eradicating illiteracy, and we're standing up for our kids. This is the 11th year, Silence the Violence, but this year we called it the Million Children's March because of what's going on in our country. We have got to stand up for the rights of families and children, all families and all children, all across America, regardless of their economic background or regardless of their origin of where they were born.
Silence the violence! Stand up! Stand up!
It's a lot of people are here who have lost their children due to gun violence. Actually, our family is one of them. And if we show the community that they do have help, that we get out and let them know that we are with them, then they'll come out too. People are tired, they're scared, they're upset, they don't know where to go and what to do. But we're here to help.
It sends a message to say there's somebody who stands with you. You know, you have a change agent with you. You have a brother, you have a sister who says, you know what, I feel the pulse of the pain of what's going on, and I'm with you in the fight.
The young people that came out, that was the best part.
Stand up! Stand up! Speak up! Speak up!
When they marching, when every step they take, that's what they're saying. I want to live. I want to live because they know the chances and the threat of death and them dying this summer is very intimate and very real.
We're not talking about just having a march, going out into the street and actually just making some noise. No, we're saying pay attention to what's going on and what's happening. This is everybody coming together for a cause, and it's about strengthening and building community, and we are doing that. And it can only happen in Island View. Who can bring all this together but Island View?
This report was made possible by the Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, a project of the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan, which is working to increase quality journalism and help better inform communities. Thanks to Kelly Cobb and Zoe Clark for joining us today. You guys were fabulous. We'll have you back.
Sounds good.
That'll do it for My Week. Make sure to head to myweek.org to find out more about our show. And Christy will be back next Thursday. We'll see you then.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.